Hello and welcome to Discussing Who. As of this recording, it is Sunday, December the 31st, 2017, as we are preparing to review the 2017 Doctor Who Christmas special, Twice Upon a Time. So for you, wherever you are in all of space and time, thank you for listening and be sure to subscribe to the show via iTunes or your favorite podcast player. Now for introductions. First, the master of words himself, Mr. Lee Shackleford. Lee, how was your Christmas?
Oh, lovely, lovely. Am I the master of words now?
I just thought you guys needed to have a professional title. So just wait till we get to the next one.
No pressure, though. Yes, excellent.
Good Christmas, excellent, good deal. Yeah. So, and next on the titles as they go around, the Lord of Sound himself and the impossible co-host.
Oh, God.
Mr. Clarence Brown.
Hey, everybody, how's it going?
It's going. How was Christmas for you?
Christmas has been great. Always too short, but, opened some presents, ate a lot of food, fellowship with family, so all good.
Good deal. Good deal. And, you always feel like after the holidays that it's like no wonder people go to the gyms in January because from Thanksgiving until Christmas till the first of the year, it's nothing but eating things that you should not really be eating. Exactly. Or at least it is for me.
No, guilty as charged.
And, who is me? Well, again, I'm Kyle Jones, and thanks, guys, for joining me for this particular episode. So here we are. It's the last day of 2017, and I thought it would be nice if we briefly talked about some of the things that we've done over the year. And it doesn't necessarily have to be Discussing Who. It can be any of our shows or any of the things that we have done so far, on other things. Lee, why don't you start us off?
I assume you mean Doctor Who-wise.
Anything you want to go. It can be relativity. It can be, Doctor Who. It can be just random thoughts real quick.
Well, yeah. Well, 2017 was the year of relativity. We started the series back in the spring and did our first batch or whatever you want to call it. When they were doing the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy radio series, which is where it began on radio, they didn't have a schedule for making those. So whenever they would do a bunch of episodes, they always called it a fit. So I keep thinking of that too. I keep thinking relativity comes out in fits. So we did our first two seasons or fits or whatever you want to call them, and it has gone from zero to being the thing it is today, which I'm still just gobsmacked, as they say over there, to that it's now being heard around the world. And just recently, I happened to be looking at the back end of the website and saw that the page that contains the player from which you can play the whole series, that the hit counter for that page had passed 10,000 hits.
Oh, wow.
Cool.
And that's not iTunes subscriptions. That's not our YouTube channel. That's just that page where you would go if you wanted to listen to the whole thing through the website. So I still can't get over that. I don't see how that's possible, but anyway, I told that to somebody at a party the other night and he said, well, how many times have you been to that page? And I said, well, actually, that was my first thought. I thought I can't have been looking at that page 10,000 times.
Just 5,000.
Just 5,000. Yeah. If only half of those are just me monkeying with the site, I don't know. But yeah. Anyway,
cool regardless.
No, nonetheless, cool. Yeah. And it's been a good year for Who. I have really loved Bill. So to me, it's the year of Bill.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, so that's my Who comment, and I guess as long as we're talking about things, when we've actually made a couple of attempts to record this already, and this episode, and the first one was on December 29th, and so I'm going to say the thing I was looking forward to saying back on the 29th, which was happy birthday to Bernard Cribbins.
Wilf,
whose birthday is December 29th, and he's 89.
Oh, wow.
So next December 29th, he will be 90. So,
oh, wow.
Hear, hear. Excellent.
So long may he wave. And I just recently finally watched the Peter Cushing Dalek movie, which, as a Who fan, maybe I should, blush to admit that I've never seen it, but it turned up on one of my, social media feeds, something about it. I said, I've never actually seen that. Well, I've forgotten that his his male companion, the Doctor's male companion. And it was Bernard Cribbins was when he was a lot younger. And so that is his other claim to Who, is that he's in the alt universe, the Peter Cushing Doctor Who universe.
Well, I don't know if it was the third or the fourth Doctor. So to add a little bit of more lore to the alt universe type of connections to Who, I think he was in consideration or one of the names thrown out at some point. And I'm thinking it was the third or fourth that his, when you're looking at our, 5 or 6 names that might be the Doctor, his name at some point in some iteration was thrown out as a potential replacement. And I think it was either for the third or the fourth, but I'm not sure which.
Yes, John, the role of the fourth Doctor could have gone to Bernard Cribbins. Yeah, after John Pertwee said he was leaving, Bernard Cribbins is one of the people interviewed by the BBC, and he always and Bernard Cribbins always liked to tell the story that he said that he thinks what lost him the job was him talking about how physical he was and I can fight, and they said, oh no, the Doctor doesn't do that at all. And he said, so then when I watched Robot, he said, I think the first thing you see is the fourth Doctor knocking somebody out. So anyway.
Well, I loved him as Wilf, but I will say this, thank goodness that he didn't get the role.
Oh, exactly. So, and who knows? In another universe, of course, he did, and it's wonderful. And but
who knows?
Who knows exactly? Who knows?
Who knows? Cool. So, Clarence, what about yourself?
Well, me along with you started another podcast, a Star Trek Discovery podcast, and that's been a lot of fun diving into that this year, as well as kind of jumping into our Discussing Who / Discussing Comics YouTube channel and getting deep into that and having a lot of fun doing that. So, overall, it's been a fun year to start a few new things, and of course, continuing with you guys doing this podcast, as well as a wonderful season of Doctor Who, which I greatly enjoyed. So, overall, for me, it's been a pretty fun year.
Yeah, I would have to echo what you just said in the sense of, I would have never have thought this time last year if anyone had told me you will put yourself in front of the camera and you will actually grow to like being in front of the camera, I would have laughed and said, never, no more, never. And I have. And, it started out when you first started doing that, Clarence, to be, like pulling teeth to even get me to record an episode. And now I'm like, okay, when are we going to do the next one? When are we going to do the next one? So, that's been fun going to more conventions. And the first convention that we went to, Doctor Who convention, Wholanta, the three of us actually got to meet. And that was a real cool highlight of this year.
I was going to say, that was a big part of the year for me, was getting the three of us in the same room. So.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. So, we've got 2018 right around the corner, but here's the thing about looking right around the corner at 2018. It's still 2017. So before we get into the review, the three of us, being Clarence, Lee, and I, have a bit of news that we want to share. And I have alluded to this on previous episodes, but this, again, last day of 2017, here is our announcement. After 89 episodes, Discussing Who, just like the Doctor, is regenerating. When we began this podcast back in 2016, I wanted a platform where I could talk about Doctor Who, comic books, science fiction, and really and truly kind of basically anything that came to mind. And I wanted to do it with people that I enjoyed talking about this stuff with. I'm the one, I think, that suggested the name Discussing Who, and I offered up the tagline, what I think I said something like, who knows who or what we will be discussing. For those of you listening and have listened for all of our episodes, we thank you. But here's the deal. Reality and intent often diverge, or as it often can be said, hindsight is often 20/20. Lee and Clarence and I know what Discussing Who is about. But is it a fair place, and is it as fair for us or me to assume that someone listening and someone going through iTunes or Stitcher or something like that, if you're a new listener, is it fair to have a name that is so obviously Doctor Who and have something about the Avengers or have something about whatever the case might be? So that's why, just as we saw in Twice Upon a Time, regeneration sometimes is not just needed, it's necessary. So in 2018, this podcast, the Discussing Who podcast, welcomes new voices, and we will see a new format, and a format that is exclusively Doctor Who. We'll bring in what I will say is an almost weekly episode schedule, and we will cover everything with the latest Doctor Who news. We will begin reviewing every episode from 2005 forward. The obvious question might be, what happens to the other content? In the coming weeks, the comic book and other content that you've been listening to, or we hope that you've been listening to, will spin off into a brand new podcast under the Discussing Who banner, starting with an all-new #1 episode. We'll highlight some of the content from our YouTube page, offer in a new and exciting format for this show as well, and bring in some new voices. We all change when you think about it, and it's exciting, and for me, to be brutally honest, it's kind of scary. But it's time to say goodbye to the current version of this podcast. And on the last day of the year, I think it's just appropriate that we're recording. So I've been speaking for a while. Guys, do you have anything you want to add to anything I just said?
Yes, we're changing the name of the show to Discussing Wha.
Yeah, what? What? Yeah.
What?
Actually, that was a good one.
No,
right.
I think it's brilliant, and yeah. So
Good deal. Clarence, do you have anything?
No, I'll just add that, we find that a lot of the podcasts that do really well are ultra focused. And, like you mentioned before, it's not really fair to our listeners to have them be able to accept every little thing we talk about, which we are kind of all over the place sometimes. So if they love Doctor Who and they love us talking about Doctor Who, they can subscribe to this feed and rest assured that, they're going to get good, focused Doctor Who content going forward.
Well said. Hear, hear.
Yeah,
well said.
yeah.
So, for anyone listening, this is our review of Twice Upon a Time. If you have not seen this episode, guess what? We encourage you to do so. But be warned, from this point forward, spoilers.
Spoilers. Affirmative. Spoilers. Spoilers. Affirmative. Spoilers.
All right, guys. As we know, Twice Upon a Time marks the end of the 12th Doctor's era, and it brings also the end to Stephen Moffat's time as showrunner. But it also marks the end of another era, and something that extends past the time that Moffat has been there. Curious question: do either of you know what I'm referring to? Oh, cool. I think I've got you both on this one. So Murray Gold, he has been arranging and writing all of the music from Rose forward. And to my understanding, this particular episode will be the last episode that he is writing the music.
I did read that, yes.
And, for me, I have in the past, even back when, you would go to actual places, not getting it offline, but you would go to, the record store, the tape, music stores. There you go. And I can remember buying soundtracks, but I would be buying soundtracks for a song, not for the instrumental music. This is the first time, and this is a compliment to him, this is the first time that I have ever been invested in things that I can't hear words to. I'm listening to the, actual orchestra music to it. So, that's kind of sad for me that he's leaving.
Yeah. Yeah, I have. I've been collecting the Murray Gold recordings from the beginning, also, and just always admired his work. Yeah.
So I've just got to, for the sake of mentioning it, some of my favorites. Obviously, all of the versions of the Doctor Who theme song that he's done. Can't say that you can't not like that. We've got I Am the Doctor, which was the 11th Doctor's theme. This is Gallifrey's Song of Captivity, Song of Freedom, Together or Not at All, The Wedding of River Song. This time there's 3 of us, sung for 4. Never Tell Me the Rules, Trenzalore and the Long Song, and of course Vale Decem, which was the song of when the 10th Doctor was regenerating. So there you go, Murray Gold. Thank you very much. I guess that's the best way to say that.
Yeah. And, back in the kind of the Rose Tyler era, there were 2 songs heard on the show that had lyrics.
Yes.
And I think there was sort of an attempt to make sort of pop hits out of them. As an amateur lyricist myself, I remember thinking, love your music, Murray. Not a lyricist.
No.
Some of the lyrics don't make a lot of sense, but I still love both of those songs. And now that I've said that, I'm trying to think what they were. There was
was it Song for 10? It was something.
Yeah, Song for 10, exactly.
Yeah.
And you would only, we hear them at Donna's wedding reception. We hear one of them at Donna's wedding reception,
yes.
And the other we heard at the end when the doctor is choosing his costume in the wardrobe.
Yes, I woke up today, and
yes, exactly.
The world was a place, or yeah,
that's it. Yeah,
it should have been. That
yeah, but the next line is, I wish, but then I wish today could be like every other day.
Yes,
which always makes me think, no, that's not what you mean. You mean you wish every other day was like
today, kind of the reverse.
But whatever. Anyway, but
hey, it was a good try.
Right. That's right. You can't be good at everything. Because,
true.
As a composer, my goodness.
Good point. All right, so let me get the obvious out of the way as we get into the review. No Susan. No Susan. Can't let me say it one more time. No Susan.
Yeah, and in that moment in the Testament, when there was sort of a, you're not going to believe who she is. I said, oh, here she comes, and it was Bill.
Yeah.
But it's funny that walk up was so pointedly. Was it just me? I thought it's going to be Susan. It's
I'm curious, Clarence. What did you think?
I really didn't I thought it was going to be Bill the whole time. So sorry.
We already knew she was in it.
Yeah. But I do have a question about some of these like connecting episodes,
okay,
which you guys may have expert knowledge on. So what is this contraption device the doctor is getting out of at the very beginning? Do we know what that is?
All right, so tell me. Okay, at the very beginning.
At the very beginning.
Okay, I know what you're talking about.
I've only seen it once, so
I think it was they were in a. So they were somewhere on the South Pole, and I think from the 10th planet it was they were at like a military something that the Cybermen had taken over or something. Because again, I've seen the 10th planet bits and pieces one time years and years and years and years ago.
Same here. Yeah, it's been a long time since I've seen 10th Planet. Yeah. And, of course, the final episode is only in reconstructions anyway.
So, speaking of reconstructions, and did that answer your question, Clarence? I'm sorry.
Yeah, we don't know.
Yeah, that's the best way to put it. We don't know.
But do you mean that lovely thing that they must have built the whole floor up for, where there's sort of a triangular door that opens right in the ground? Is that what you're talking about? Yeah. So, I think that is the hatchway to an underground base, if I remember right.
I think you're right, but I don't know.
Yeah.
And we're under the impression that the first Doctor is holding back his regeneration as well. Do we know what is causing him or what caused him to regenerate? Or was that just kind of trumped up for the show?
Yeah, that was trumped up for the show. It was because Bill Hartnell really was getting to where he couldn't do the show anymore. It just, as my understanding is the way that's told in Adventure in Space and Time is pretty much on the money, that it's not so much that he was physically ill, just that he couldn't remember lines from one scene to the next. And, and it's actually, it's really charming if you watch First Doctor stories and you're taking note of this, that he can't remember Ian Chesterton's name. He calls him all kinds of things. And, and so that seems like it's part of the Doctor's character, but that was really Bill Hartnell not being able to remember what the character's name was supposed to be. But yeah, so it was a problem.
I remember from watching the Adventure in Space and Time that it was something of a feeling that, he and the Doctor persona, because of his ailments, that and not being able to remember, that some of that was blurring. That he was starting to not be able to differentiate. Is at least how I interpreted it between himself and the Doctor to some degree.
Yeah, which is something that happens to every actor who plays a role for a long time, and it's it's well known as one of the dangers of playing a role for a long time.
Good question.
Yeah, it really is. And if you watch the whole thing, my recollection of it is, and I think part of the history of 10th Planet is that the regeneration kind of seems to come out of nowhere. It hasn't been hinted before. The Doctor's held a prisoner through all of the third episode, and then when we see him again, he has, I must get to the TARDIS, he says.
Which is literally what we saw, the recreation.
Exactly.
Good question, Clarence. Keep them flowing anymore.
Yeah. More good questions.
So what did, and I'll pose this one to Clarence, what did you think of the way they recreated the Ben and Polly scenes of him getting out of the contraption that Lee just referred to?
I mean, I thought it looked cool, but honestly, it was meaningless to me. Yeah. I mean, that would be something maybe you guys can elaborate on. I mean, it was cool to see, but I mean, it was more or less in the meaningless because I just have not seen those episodes or those companions in action. So it didn't have a whole lot of weight with me.
What about you, Lee?
Well, I saw it in the theater, and we got before and after the screening the companion pieces that I assume will be on the DVD release. They're both made by the show, with all the branding on it and so on. And one of the things that was included was that they showed the rest of 10th Planet that they recreated. They actually recreated a whole bunch of scenes from 10th Planet. And then and then at the last hour, as they were cutting it all together, they cut most of that out. So,
wow.
Yeah, there was actually a lot more Ben and Polly shot. And of course, I know we'll see it all again, at some point. But I thought it was all very loving. I mean, one of the best things about Twice Upon a Time to me is that they gave them an opportunity and a reason to reconstruct the original TARDIS interior.
Good point.
Do we think they were being more or less faithful to the original as far as Ben and Polly and also the TARDIS?
Oh, the TARDIS is down to a 16th of an inch, I think. It is, in fact, in that little documentary, one of the things that Mark Gatiss was being a fanboy about was that, there's these two golden pillars that are sort of in corners of the room. You'd have to see a picture of it because there's so much junk in that.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
But those are, in fact, the gold pillars that stood in the original.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And that they were in storage at the BBC somewhere and properly cataloged. So they found them and brought them out. So everything else there has been rebuilt. But those were really the same ones that were in William Hartnell's TARDIS.
Interesting.
So you're telling me we could keep those pillars, but we couldn't keep the original footage?
Yeah.
Right.
Good point. Very good point.
Yeah. The way that they were using storage space is very controversial.
Yeah. We can keep big pillars, but we can't keep film. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But I guess you could reuse the film where you couldn't. Well, I guess you could reuse the pillars too. But
oh yes, no. That's why they say. And I don't know if we want to go down this rabbit hole or not, but that's really part of the whole logic on which the story, the whole series was created, was that, of course, we're going to give this character a time machine in this show that's going to be on at tea time because the BBC has already done years and years and years of TV shows and movies set in different historical eras. And after they finish those costumes, bang, they all go into storage. So if we say we're going to go visit the Roman Empire, that's no problem. We'll just haul out all these costumes. So we'll go with this episode's about Marco Polo. Fine, because we already have that. So they knew that a time travel show is one of the cheapest things, really.
Interesting.
With the resources of the BBC that they could do. Yeah. It's this thing about going to other planets that's a problem.
Good point. And, it's interesting. I actually have to go with your opinion, Clarence, other than seeing the 709 episodes ago and, seeing, which I did think it was really, really cool how they transitioned at the beginning from black and white into, colorization. And then at the end, they take it from colorization back into black and white. I thought that was really cool. But that little scene with Ben and Polly, because of just what I got to see, like you got to see, not what Lee got to see, it was kind of inconsequential for me too, because it was so brief, so small, so, just there they were and then they were gone, that it was really, inconsequential.
Yeah, and a pity.
So, good question. Any other ones from there at the beginning? All right.
We all noted that transition also had a lovely dissolve from William Hartnell speaking to David Bradley finishing the line for him. We'd all seen that in the trailer, but it was there. Yeah. And I just thought that was sort of a mechanism for us as the audience. But the 12th Doctor actually says you can tell he's in the middle of his regeneration. He said his face is all over the place.
True.
So there's even an in-canon explanation for why he doesn't look like William Hartnell, which I thought was that's brilliant.
Yeah. And I'll say, no, this is as good a time as any. It was interesting even at the regeneration scene, when Capaldi is going through and doing his speech. It was interesting, and it may be me reading more into it than what there was, but there were several times that I looked at the way they had his hair combed, and then I looked at what Jodie Whittaker's hair looked like and how she had hers combed and it was like, were you kind of even doing that little minor detail right before the regeneration, that you combed his hair some in the same similar style as hers? Maybe.
Yeah.
So, we pretty much pick up at the beginning of the episode. We pick up at the end of The Doctor Falls, which was, of course, the finale of season 10. Or series 10, however you want to say it. But we pick up with, I am, the original, you might say, and he comes in and we see the first Doctor's point of view, as opposed this time to, the last time to seeing the 12th Doctor. We even see the captain's point of view. So what do we think of that first interaction between Dr. 1 and Dr. 12, even before they went into the TARDIS, where they're sitting there or standing there talking to each other? Guys, what did you think of that?
I thought it was interesting, but one of the things I do have one thing I can't really understand is we always have this thing in the multi-Doctor episodes where the Doctor goes back into his own time stream and he doesn't remember. And this kind of problem, I had the same thing on the Day of the Doctor. Mm-hmm. When they're in each other's normal, it's not like they brought him into his time stream and he went back. They're both in each other's normal time stream. So in that case, why would he forget? Well, does that make any sense?
Yeah, and actually, again, in canon this time, the Doctor 12, he says a couple of times, "Why don't I remember this?"
Yeah. So they never even said why they didn't.
No, but at least he's puzzling over it too. Yeah, but you're right. I did think it interesting that the script took time to note that this was out of the ordinary.
But once again, we have to remember the reason he was there was because the TARDIS took him there. Because the last thing he says is he's getting out of the TARDIS at the end of that last episode. No matter what kind of point you're trying to make, I'm not listening. And that's right after he's saying, he will not, he doesn't want to keep living on as somebody else. And then he goes out into the snow and says, "No, I will not change." So it's the TARDIS that was making that point. So the TARDIS was what decided that those two had to be there at the same time. And it was maybe as the result of this whole thing is why the TARDIS took him there, was so something could happen that would impact the Doctor's timeline going forward.
Maybe perhaps. So. Mm. Do I remember right that when we were talking about the Doctor Falls, that my feeling was that what the Doctor was saying when he was saying he didn't want to regenerate, not that he wanted to stay the same, but that it was time to die.
You said that, and I think I disagreed. But
right. That's the way I'm remembering it. That was the minority view.
Yeah, so, you were spot on with that, sir.
Yeah, you were. You were very spot on.
And it turned out that I was. Yeah, that was one of my experiences of watching the Christmas special. Was going, okay, I was right about that. Wow, that is dark. That is dark, man. That is dark.
Yeah, very dark.
Yeah. And while I do feel that with Capaldi, I'm really having trouble seeing why the first Doctor felt that way.
I had the courage to live and die as myself.
Maybe just because he's never done it before.
Right.
Yeah. I guess I can see that.
That line there is, really stood out to me. The courage to live and die as myself, that you didn't want to change. And it goes back to what you just said, it's never happened before. So that fear of not knowing what it's going to be like, because think about it, he's done it, 12 more times since then by the time Capaldi rolls around.
Right. Including the one with the Eighth Doctor turned into the War Doctor, which
correct
has to have been the worst. He asks the sister, hey, he says, will it hurt? And she says yes, and he says good.
So what about the scene where they walk into the TARDIS and they're seeing the Doctor's TARDIS, the current TARDIS, and you've got that interaction with the captain and the first Doctor. Clarence, any initial thoughts on that?
That's another scene I had seen like way before the episode. I thought it was pretty interesting. I do like the whole bit they had going with the brandy. I thought that was pretty interesting.
Oh, yeah. It took me 2 watchings before I got the brandy joke or the brandy tie-in of how it really, got decreased. And it was like, oh, okay, now I get it. But the first time watching, it didn't. It took that second time watching for me to get it.
Well, I have just before we dive too deep into the episode going forward, we get that first scene at the battlefield with the captain. Did any of you guys know about the Christmas thing 1914 before, or did anybody piece that together? Is that's a real event? The armistice thing?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was just wondering, did anybody piece it together prior to?
Did you, Lee?
No, and I'm a great fan of European history, and so that's one of my favorite. I think it's one of the great moments in world history, is the Christmas armistice. But even though there we were in the right place and at the right time, it caught me by surprise that when the moment came and the Doctor revealed that this is that Christmas Eve, it hit me right in the solar plexus. I was not expecting that's what was going to happen.
All right.
This is what's going to save the captain.
So, Clarence, did you see it, or did you get it, or
no? I did not.
I didn't either.
I did feel it negated some parts of the story, but I guess we'll get to that a little bit later.
No, let's get to it now. What do you think it negated?
Well, of course, the whole purpose of the testimony is to take memories at the time or right before the moment of death. But due to the Doctor taking the captain back, I guess 2 hours later, I think he said he shifted the time stream, however it happens.
Right.
And he did not meet his ultimate fate of dying. So I was like, okay, it's a beautiful story. He lived, but still a little weird.
Okay. So let me pose this spin on it. Maybe the reason that the TARDIS took the 12th Doctor to the South Pole at the same time had absolutely nothing to do with him regenerating and him meeting his first incarnation. Maybe the reason that the TARDIS took him there was so that them being in the same place would cause the timeline error and freeze time, so that the Doctor would be prompted to go and because that captain is eventually going to die at some point. So maybe putting the Doctor in that situation at that time puts him in a situation where that captain makes the Doctor make a promise to him to look in on his family, and hence, therefore, the Captain Lethbridge Stewart, you have the Doctor going and, having all this relationship with his son and then his granddaughter, possibly.
Yeah, grandson and great granddaughter.
Grandson. Oh, that's Lethbridge Stewart's grandfather, not father.
Yeah.
Okay.
Really a tiny difference, really.
Yeah, but still.
I just remember that. But
interesting.
Yeah. I mean, that is it. Well, yeah, I get that. But then I guess I'm being the ultimate pessimist here. Wow. But then there's also the thing of every time we have two doctors meet, it always affects the time stream in a different way. And this instance, it freezes time. We've seen demons. We've seen freezing of time. Can we just like settle on what happens and go with that going forward?
Yeah. What are the rules exactly?
There are no rules.
Exactly. Whatever serves the story. Well, that appears to be the rules governing the Weeping Angels too, by the way.
It's so interesting that you actually both said that, because one of those songs that I mentioned are that Gold wrote. There is something called "Never Tell Me the Rules." So just saying.
There you go. Yep.
All right. Let's get into the return of, I think, one of our favorite characters, Bill Potts. What was it like seeing Bill back? Or were we happy to have Bill back? I mean, obviously yes, but I hope yes, but curious.
Yeah, but I've come to call this the boomerang effect, and this is purely Stephen Moffat, and I'll be interested to see if Chris Chibnall is going to do the same thing. But companions do not simply depart in the Stephen Moffat corner of the Doctor Who universe. They have to then come back again, every single one of them. And so I love Bill, but holy smoke, are we? I just when they're given these beautiful exits, when they're given this out, then I don't know.
But was it Bill?
Well, that's it. At least this one made more sense to me. But yeah, I don't know.
And did it cheapen the fact that Bill was back? The fact that it was not Bill. If it was, I mean, regardless, and I can hear her saying, I am Bill Potts. I'm all of her memories. I'm Bill Potts. But still, when he goes into the thing that he said about, my memories would shatter your testimony. And,
right.
All the memories that I have would shatter these vessels and et cetera and so forth. So, but yes, it was Bill, but no, it wasn't. But does that kind of cheapen it in some way?
I think story-wise, it makes it work better. I think I'm always for justifications within the content, the confines of a story that makes something work. And in this case, I think you can have her here, have Nordal as well, and still can kind of separate yourself from the fact that the real Bill is off gallivanting across the universe with whatever the girl's name is.
Heather.
So,
Heather.
Yeah, Heather. So, I thought it was okay in this instance. They chose a clever way to bring her back, and I can give them props for that.
Yeah, they even brought back Rusty the Dalek, which I thought was a clever way to do.
Right.
So who the heck is Rusty?
Second episode of Capaldi's run, where they went into the Dalek. Yes,
into the Dalek.
I did not remember that.
Yeah. I had to have my memory jogged too, and because the Doctor says it. Remember that time I was miniaturized and crawled around inside you?
Yeah.
Oh, that's who this is. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So see, that's because both of your memories were erased because of that particular companion's time. That's why neither of you remembered that. But, like Bill said, she's going to show you the importance of memories. And Clarence, my friend, this is for you.
Yeah.
How were those,
few seconds?
Yeah.
Jenna Coleman.
Right.
Yeah, it was awesome, man. It was awesome. That one is for the haters. It's for the Clara haters. Let's make it happen.
Yeah, but as we're asking Clarence how he felt about seeing Clara again, I have to ask Kyle, if we're talking about the 12th Doctor's memories and the people most important to him, where is his wife?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
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 We've forgotten all about River Song. We just forgot.
I mean, if they have something that records, but then does that not take out the whole, if she's somehow saved in this, testimony thing, does that not then negate, and maybe this is why they didn't do it, would that not negate the whole thing that she was in the library and faded?
Right. Yeah.
So
I mean, that would be the in canon explanation. I mean, the real truth is Alex Kingston's probably doing something else.
true.
But really, if those people he was encountering, Nardole and Claire, if those are projections of his own memory, then it would have made as much sense to have River Song there. But anyway.
But I thought they were all memories from those people that died right before their point of death.
Correct.
So
they were.
That was coming from the testimony.
Yeah, okay. That's what I assumed.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Then River can't be there, right?
Yeah. Then River can't be there because of what happened to her. So there we go.
Which I was wondering. We have that scene where they're actually in the testimony spaceship, and we have all the bubbles of the doctors flying around. Mm-hmm. So I was wondering, okay, are these memories they took from the doctor at his point of regeneration, or was that just they were just making reference? I couldn't really understand what they were doing there.
Interesting question. Yeah. Yeah. To which I do not have an answer. Yeah.
Okay. Well, here's how I saw it. I saw it more so as this is a big library, because they're basically saying the way they describe it is we can, bring back, and you can actually talk to Einstein, or you can talk to, whoever this, Winston Churchill or whomever that you want to, talk to because of the way the memories are kept. Well, they can also, if they've got this big database with all these people's memories, then they could extract memories from people who have seen, this first doctor, second doctor, third doctor, et cetera, so forth, and so on.
That makes sense.
What did you guys think of the whole Doctor of War title that was given?
That was a surprise. They're very careful not to say War Doctor, but Doctor of War.
What do you think, Clarence? What did you think of it?
Yeah, I'm trying to see why they chose to change the wording there. But I guess more importantly, it was something for the first Doctor to look at in kind of awe and surprise, raise an eyebrow at. Like, what? Doctor of War,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Was it a validation of some point of John Hurt's War Doctor? Because, knowing the Doctor of Wars and the way that they presented it by the end of, yes, you go into these different warring places and you tend to these people that are, and you try to make things better. Speaking of Bill and the First Doctor, which that made me think of that whole interaction between her and the First Doctor, where she's asking questions like she always does, and she's asking, why did you run away? What were you running to?
Oh yeah,
and that whole interaction with those two. So, what did you guys think on that?
It was fascinating. I think it's always interesting, sort of from our perspective, looking back to get a chance to talk to the First Doctor. So that was one of the great things about the special, is to have Bill kind of pepper him with questions like she does, and I thought it was all very, very consistent, very interesting. And I like the fact that he didn't say, "Well, I chose that TARDIS because this mysterious woman appeared to me and told me to go."
Right. All right. So let me segue into something that was one of my, I don't want to say pet peeves about the show, but I know times were different, and I know the First Doctor's characterization was different than any other, mainly because, well, they probably didn't think that this show would be on for 50 something years. Having said that, Clarence, I'll let you take this one first. Did you find it a little bit off-putting, or what were your thoughts of him being for me, a transparent reason why the 13th Doctor is now going to be a woman?
Can you say that question one more time? I'm sorry.
All right. So, okay. So I saw him being very off-putting. Some of the remarks that he made, some of the downright sexist, and what were your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Well, first of all, you just mentioned kind of the moments where Bill was talking to the First Doctor, doing what Bill does, asking questions. To me, the stern, male chauvinistic responses kind of threw me out of maybe some valid answers he was giving. So I didn't even hear all that. I was just, I was just thinking of the very, I'll say, of their time responses that the first Doctor was given. And it really threw me out of the episode for a minute. I was like, wow, is this merely how this Doctor was, or are they just kind of doing a bunch of foreshadowing to things are about to change?
Okay, so Lee, what do you think on that?
Well, I think it was pretty clearly the latter. This really is going to be about, we're pointing our way towards the 13th Doctor because, and I thought this was the most interesting discussion that I saw on social media after the episode aired, that a lot of people who are devoted fans of the first Doctor were really offended by this portrayal of him because it does make sense that this, how did you say, Clarence? This creature of his time,
Yeah.
of 1963, if nothing else, that he would be this sort of paternalistic, even chauvinistic Doctor. But the truth is, you go back and watch what we still have of the first Doctor stories, and he's not.
No, he's not.
That's really not who he is at all. So a lot of people were saying, well, you kind of took a cheap shot at our character by putting words in his mouth that have never been there. That's not who he was. It makes sense that he would be, but he wasn't.
Now he did, I think, and I think it may have been, the 6-part, the Dalek invasion of Earth. That may have been which story it was, but there was the line that he, when she was calling the Doctor an ass, and the first Doctor leans out the door and says, "Young lady, if you keep saying that, I'm going to smack your bottom." I think
they went there.
Yeah. And I think that there was a scene that he actually said that to Susan in one of the scenes.
He did. He did actually say that to Susan once. And one of the fans whose, comments I was reading pointed out that it's one thing to say that to your granddaughter.
Exactly.
And quite another.
Exactly. Yes.
To say it to somebody that you've just met.
Exactly.
And, but still, I thought it was lighthearted and so I enjoyed it, even though, I can see why some people might be a little hurt that their favorite Doctor was being depicted in that way. So,
well, I have to say, and guys, feel free to disagree with me, but I have to say that Bill Hartnell. So this right there says to you what I'm about to say. David Bradley's portrayal of both, William Hartnell plus his portrayal of the first Doctor now, I actually really, really liked it. Mm-hmm. Regardless of the, the comments and the way that his character may have been used. If I go back and look at other ways that the first Doctor has been portrayed and I see him, I think he did a very good, as best maybe it could be for not being that person, portrayal. Agree? Disagree?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. His portrayal was pretty excellent. But again, to kind of Lee's comment about, this was not the first Doctor at all, and some of these comments that he made, you have to look at it from the sense of somebody who's never seen the first Doctor. Is this really what we want to leave them with? Yeah. Of the first Doctor? I don't think that's a good taste in the mouth of somebody who's just now seeing the first Doctor for the first time.
Agreed.
But I mean, not on David Bradley. He did a wonderful job portraying the character. I did feel that.
Agreed.
And my wife made I thought a wonderful point that she and I have been talking about ever since, actually, after seeing the special together, that Doctor Who really is sort of unique in the world of entertainment. I can't think of another example of being a show that is so openly self-referential that that it is. I've been trying to put these into my own words ever since then, but that it is like the show is very often looking over its shoulder and winking at the camera, just sometimes just a little bit, and sometimes really blatantly and obviously. Like for a lot of people in the audience, once the reveal that the captain's name is Lethbridge Stewart, there's a lot of people in the audience who said, "Oh," and the rest of the audience says, "And." And you can think of 100 other examples, throughout the whole history of the show where where they have to sort of stop and wink at the audience, say, "Oh, you see what's happening here? Yeah, because you've been watching the show." So it's like, well, and it's somehow different from the continuity inside other shows. And I just the cynical part of me thinks that a lot of what's going on here, I know that really what's happening is that this is that the showrunners are fans themselves. And so they're enjoying playing this game with the audience. And so I know that's the main thing. But I always have to wonder if there isn't also a sort of a merchandising aspect that the show has to keep reminding you that this has been going on for 50 plus years now. And if you'd like to know more about the First Doctor, may we direct your attention to these DVDs over here? Oh, you don't know who Lethbridge Stewart is? Well, we just happen to, here's the complete Third Doctor and Fourth Doctor, and you'll find out all about
point
Brigadier
taken.
But I don't think that's the main reason. But it does feel to me that very often like sometimes we're selling Ewoks, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's kind of a good segue, because I know, again, this is the 31st, and both of you have things that you need to be doing to get prepared for the new year. So that was a good way to segue into something that I want to talk about at the end, which is obviously the most important part. And you said that the showrunners are often fans themselves. So I noticed something about Moffat's exit, similar into the way he entered is the way he exited, meaning he exited doing a final scene after a regeneration where the Doctor regenerates and destroys the console room from the RTD era, and he leaves doing the exact same thing that his previous showrunner was doing when he took over. So I thought that was a good bookend for him, is he leaves it exactly, per se, the way he found it at the beginning.
The clean slate.
Yep. So we see, before we see the regeneration itself, the Doctor has this, I think, very good story where this speech where he's telling, his next incarnation all these different words of wisdom. What did you guys think about the name thing, about children being able to hear the name?
Yeah, I was really shocked by that one.
Yeah.
I really didn't know what he was referring to specifically, because I don't remember that happening any of the New Who. So I don't know.
Lee, what did you think? I agree, Clarence.
Not literally, but I have to think that he's being poetic. But even on that level, maybe I'm getting too old. I don't quite get what he means by that.
Well, go ahead.
I mean, I don't know. To me, it seems like it could be a little hint at a biblical reference, like "Suffer the little children to come unto me," a bit, but still, it felt weird.
Okay, so it's funny. I'm glad you said that before I say what I think is the truth here. When you said it sounds like a little bit of biblical reference, and especially the verse that you just quoted, which is, I think, somehow this was incorporated from a visit that Capaldi had to a sick child, maybe a terminally ill child in a hospital that, and I think they incorporated something that he said to the child into this. And it may be verbatim, I'm not sure, but I think that's how they tied that in, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, it is.
So, go ahead.
No, I was going to just mention, like, again, in that last speech, it again, I don't know if they're beating us over the head with the woman stuff coming, and he makes the statement, was it run far, run fast, and be kind? Mm-hmm. And, I mean, I don't know if there's out of scope what the Doctor has said before, but it still felt like, okay, well, things are changing here. Just be aware.
Yeah, it's actually a throwback to his goodbye to Clara right before he passed out and forgot her. It was, to always be kind and all, and run and all of those. Cause I think at that point neither one of them knew. Well, no, I think he had realized at that point that he was the one that was forgetting.
Oh, okay. Got you.
All right. So we see the 13th Doctor, and we see, obviously, the transformation, that there's no doubt in our minds that he turned into the 13th Doctor because the ring falls off of her hand, etc. What did you guys, without me saying anything about the scene, what did you guys think of the scene? Lee, I'll let you take it first.
I was so eager for it. I mean, to me, that was what this whole Christmas special was about, is that moment. And I predicted it correctly, that it would be brief. What we've sort of set up in New Who is that what we get now is maybe a catchphrase. Because so far what we've had is Barcelona and Geronimo, right?
Right.
What was Peter Capaldi's? I don't suppose you know how to fly this thing.
Yeah. Kidneys. I got new kidneys.
I've got new kidneys, yeah. So again, it was just a moment.
I don't like the color.
All we got from her was, oh, brilliant. I thought interesting, a working class accent, which I think is, she didn't say, oh, brilliant. She says, oh, brilliant. Which I think is great. So I just, the revelation that the Doctor is happy about this new body. And then, of course, the worst possible thing happens, which is a terrific. It's not cliffhanger is hardly the word, but so I just thought that was spectacular. And here's an interesting sort of real world thing is that the documentary that we saw afterwards about making the show strongly suggested that the team that made Twice Upon a Time, the last thing that they shot was Peter Capaldi in the TARDIS making that speech. And two things about that. One was that Peter Capaldi had a great deal of input in scripting that they had asked him, what are the things you think your Doctor needs to say to the next one? So that suggests a lot of what you were saying, Kyle, is that I think that the actor had some very specific things that he was thinking about for any number of reasons. So it's very likely that the children will get it. That very well could be from something that happened in real life to Peter Capaldi. But the other thing is that production on the show officially wrapped when they shot his last scene. So I think it's the production team from the first episode of the new series who shot all of the stuff inside the TARDIS with Jodie Whittaker and destroying the TARDIS interior and all of that. So did Stephen Moffat actually write that scene? I don't know.
No, I don't think he did. And we can ask this question in May of next year because she will be at Hulanta. Rachel, I can't say her last name.
Talali. Yeah, in the documentary she introduced herself, and I said, "Oh, thank goodness! Now you know how to say it."
Talali.
Talali. Yeah.
Okay. She was actually, at first didn't know if she was going to be directing that scene, but was asked also to direct that scene just as she had the rest of the episode. So yes, and I think Chibnall did, write that scene, and of course she directed it. But I think you're right. I think it was the other production team that did that scene with Jodie.
Yeah. Yeah, apparently Jodie Whittaker was not on set when they were shooting all the rest of this. So
interesting. Yeah. So Clarence, what did you think of it?
I don't know. I thought it was a little weird that, when the regeneration first happens, it seems like everything is okay until the Doctor pulls the lever on the console, and then all things go to Hades. So I don't know. I thought that was weird. And I noticed like when she was falling out of the TARDIS, it actually seemed to dematerialize. So that might be something interesting too.
Yeah, I noticed that too. So here's my thing. Here's my thought. And I think this is what was kind of off-putting to me, and this has 0% nothing to do with her being the Doctor. Nothing. But I did not like the fact that the TARDIS, quote unquote, expunged her from the TARDIS, or, kind of she falls out of it and it disappears. Because when I saw that, I'm like, okay, maybe you're doing this scene to say, we're going to do what we want to regardless of what people say. But I was hearing all these detractors saying, see, even the TARDIS doesn't like her.
Oh, wow.
And
wow.
And that's not me being negative. That's me saying I could hear people talking about it, saying, well, the TARDIS doesn't want to even have her in it anymore. And I'm like, why did you guys do that? But on the flip side, I can look at it and say, you know what? We don't, there's going to be detractors in anything we do.
Of course.
And, even if the TARDIS had a big sign that fell down that said, welcome 13th Doctor, we're happy you're here, somebody would have had something to say about that too. So,
that's right.
But I do, and again, this is not because it's a woman, but for some reason I feel protective of the 13th Doctor only because I think no matter.
She doesn't need you, Kyle. She doesn't need you.
But you get my point.
It's the Doctor.
But there's going to be so many, for the first time since Patrick Troughton, you've had an actor who is faced with such a weight of the show since Troughton, in a way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
And that's where I'm saying I'm a little protective, of this version of the Doctor, is because I think there are people just like waiting in the wings to kind of like pounce and say, oh, look, this Doctor didn't do it as good as blah, 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 blah.
Indeed there are. Yes.
So that's where I'm coming from.
But I talked to somebody, a fan, not too long ago about, and I asked her, are you looking forward to the 13th Doctor? And she just rolled her eyes. She said, well, anything will be better than Peter Capaldi.
Wow.
So, the fandom is big enough for for all opinions.
Mm. Yeah, and you know what? That just reminded me. Go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, my. I just want to mention it before I forget it. I had very much the same thought that you did, Kyle, although I think my spin on it was a little, I hope, more fun, and I hope is what happens, maybe, is that we got more of the TARDIS as a character in this story than we usually do. I mean, and it was all done in editing and sort of blocking of the scene, but the Doctor says something to the air, to the TARDIS, and we saw a reaction shot of the lights flashing, the lights kind of pulsing inside the console, as if the TARDIS was answering him.
True.
And I thought that interesting. That kind of takes us back to the Doctor's wife and that kind of thing. And so, I read that the same way you did. Was the 13th Doctor being ejected from the TARDIS, was that an accident, or did the TARDIS do that on purpose?
Right.
Is that setting us up for this idea that the 13th Doctor and the TARDIS are going to have this adversarial relationship, which would be new?
True.
Because obviously we do know the TARDIS is a woman. We saw that.
Right.
So if we're going to keep taking that seriously, are they two women who don't get along?
Oh, that's too.
Yeah.
True. Good point.
And by the way, I want to encourage people to go back to episode 87 of Discussing Who if they haven't heard it, and hear Elena Jordan's our buddy Elena, because I love, if nothing else, Elena's observation that we've seen the wardrobe inside the TARDIS before, but only briefly. But if we start seeing it now,
different connotation.
Yeah.
Agreed.
It's like, there wasn't a closet in the TARDIS before. Yeah, there was. So, but whatever.
Go ahead.
There's always been a lot of clothes in the TARDIS. Anyway, but I keep cutting you off.
No, you're good. I just want to say this about Capaldi before we wrap, which is, I for that first season and, season 8 and somewhere even into season 9, I was always so negative with Capaldi, saying, oh, I don't like this, and, being sometimes overly negative with it. And then here comes season 10, and, it was like, oh, I really like Capaldi now, and blah, 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 blah. I think it was, and Clarence, Lee, I made a reference to you about this, that the first time I watched it, there were, a couple of, misty-eyed parts, and then that scene with him and Nordal and Bill at the end.
Oh, yeah.
Whenever I watched that again, where he says, thank you for everything you were to me, and they disappear, and I kind of break down. I think to myself, whereas Matt Smith's Doctor's era was like an era of fun and happiness and family, this was an era of a tragic Doctor, of a lonely Doctor to me to some degree.
Yeah.
And I think that's, if anything, I think when we look back, 10 years from now and we say, okay, what was a picture, or what can you say about Peter Capaldi's era? I think he will be seen as a sad, not as a, but his era was a very sad era for the Doctor, not in anything that happened, but it was like a doctor trying to figure himself out. And once he finally does, and he gets happy, and he is happy, and he has happiness around him, he regenerates.
Yeah. Yeah. Just when things just when he gets the answers right.
Right. Because if you go back and you look at the first two, and you see how this Doctor in 3 seasons has radically changed from the way he was at the beginning. If anything, he has changed more in 3 seasons than many Doctors change in, they're usually 3 to 4 seasons.
Ever.
But you get,
right.
but I think he had to me more character growth than Matt Smith did as a character. And I loved Matt Smith. But Matt Smith was always that fun and old Doctor, and he was consistently that. That's my take.
Yeah.
All right. So, Clarence, any closing thoughts that you might have on this episode?
No, I think I've aired all my grievances. No, but I enjoyed the episode overall. I really thought it was fun. I had fun with this episode. And I think if we're ever going to have multi-Doctor episodes again, I think this is one we could look at to see where it was done fairly well. I mean, we all love the Day of the Doctor, but I think this one as well was done pretty good. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the new Jodie Whittaker era, and yeah. What about you guys?
All right, Lee, what do you say?
I was just thinking about when you said multi-Doctor stories, I was just thinking about 3 Doctors and 5 Doctors, and both of which had John Pertwee in them. And part of what marks the John Pertwee era is that he is exiled to the Earth. He's there and can't travel through space and time, and so it just hit me. Is that what we're setting up the 13th Doctor for? That she's going to be on the Earth with no TARDIS?
Wow.
I'm not sure how I feel about that.
Well, we do know the windows will be smaller. We do know that.
We do know that. That's right. That's right. Yeah. But anyway, no, I did. I really enjoyed it, and the big laugh for me was the Doctor's realization that what the testimony are up to is not an evil plan. And he says, I don't know what to do with that. I did really, really love that moment. Yeah. So, yeah.
Well,
how about you?
I think, the more I will go back and watch this, there will be different things that I will pick up on, that I will like it more. Was it my favorite regeneration story? No, it wasn't. But was it great seeing, the first Doctor? Yes. I mean, I still enjoyed the episode. I really love seeing Bill Potts again. I love seeing Nordal again. I was happy to see Clara again. I mean, I think it was well done. So, I enjoyed, and I have enjoyed this 2017 doing this show with you guys. I'm looking forward to what's coming in 2018, things that we'll all 3 do as, co-host on our respective shows and things that we do. So I think it would be appropriate to thank everyone for listening and remind everyone to subscribe. You can go to discussingwho.com/subscribe. As we bring 2017 to a close, remember, always be kind, never be cowardly, and never be cruel. Oh, and one more thing, never eat pears. And on behalf of all of us, for this version of the show, we let you go.
You've been listening to the Discussing Who podcast. Discussing Who is made by fans for fans. No copyright infringement is intended. Show us you're fans of the show by liking us on Facebook, following us on Twitter. You can find us on the web at www.discussingwho.com. Want more Discussing Who? Find us on iTunes, Google Play Music, Player FM, the Doctor Who Podshock Alliance, and more.
Send us your feedback to discussingwho@gmail.com, or if you'd like, simply record a voice message and send that to us via your smartphone, tablet, or computer. We want to hear from you.